everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. As a reminder, please note that board meetings are being recorded for the convenience of those unable to attend. A recording and closed captioning will be posted to the BERS YouTube channel following the meeting. Alex, can you please call roll?
Certainly. Peter Calandrala, Isaac Carmignani.
Present.
Thank you. Janelle Chacon. April Chaplin.
Present.
Thank you. Deborah Dillingham.
Present.
Thank you. Natalie Greenchild. Thank you. Michael Pratt. Vanessa Lynn. Gary Lennon.
Present.
Thank you. John Maderick.
Present.
Thank you. Donald Nesbitt. Thank you. Lindsay Oates.
Here.
Thank you. Laura Benvester. And Shannon Wade. Here. Thank you.
We have a quorum. The first order of business is calendar item 1, noting the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Retirement held on January 29th, 2020. The minutes have been previously provided to the board via the SharePoint site. May I have a motion to consider the minutes from the January 29th board meeting? Thank you, Gary. Second. Thank you, Shannon. Please raise your hand if you vote to approve the minutes. Are there any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The vote carries. Next on the agenda is the executive director's update. Sandy, would you like to share any remarks with us?
Yes, I'll try to keep it short. For anyone who doesn't have their 55 water ID, Allison is here, can take your picture, we can process it for you. So please talk to Allison about that. In operations, member services, etc., January month-end operating reports on the SharePoint site if you'd like to review those. It's a lot of information, so I'm not including it in the green folders, but it's easily accessible. Membership outreach was very busy last week. Remember, school was out. We were actually closed for 2 of those days, but in 3 days they saw 507 unique visits, and that was just physical presence. Multiple numbers of that in phone calls. Wait times were down significantly, but still 40 to 60 minutes. And the reality is that we can do a lot of good for members. We're still stressing over the idea of having too few counselors, and you're going to be hearing about that in the budget request. Data analytics, pursuing surveying work. We sent out 8,500 new surveys to members. Previous survey issues were to business addresses. This is to personal addresses. We've had over 4,200 responses. We're still collating those, and we'll create an analysis of that for trustees, and we'll also post a lot of those comments from the survey. I shared comments last meeting. We're waiting for comments to come in on this rash of surveys, and we'll be sharing that next month. Office move, we have over 20 staff at 55 Water. Remember, we're still waiting for a technology stack rebuild over there, but we have a temporary fiber connection, and we've been able to put in, using existing switches we had, put in some hard network connections. And so we've taken a lot of pressure off 65 Ford Street, and we will be providing, probably via SharePoint, details on that rebuild. It's going to cost us $2 million. It's in the budget. Includes a brand new 3-way fiber connection between Metrotech, 65 Ford, 55 Water, our disaster recovery program. It includes a significant upgrade in the network capacity of 55 Water and a complete rebuild, and new security systems at 55 Water and 65 Court. And this is all in the budget, but we're going to give you details. This is all being operated either through existing DOE contracts through Do It, or through contracts that are going through our procurement process.
Sandy, question.
Yes, Jen.
All of the stuff that you just talked about being able, that it included, was all for $2 million?
Yes. And we have a lot of leverage being part of DOE, a lot of leverage. And it's important to note that we will still be on the DOE network. And so someone who wants to engage with the DOE network, who doesn't work for BERS, just has to show up and plug in. So, human resources, we're at 118. We have 4 people who are starting now, so that's no effective change from the end of January. 4 remaining spaces we expect to have filled in the next 2 or 3 months, including additional legal staff, additional QA staff, an ACO for our procurement operation working for JD, and investment analyst in the accounting department working for JD. And that will be finished up in the next few months, so we expect to come to you at the end of the fiscal year fully staffed and asking for more FTEs. So be ready for that request. Very exciting. Audit, well, we have to fill up 55 water. Not that we leased it to fill it up, but. In terms of audit, just some information. Aday's here if anyone has any questions, but Aday has previously distributed to all trustees 3 reports, one a risk assessment, one a governance assessment, and then an internal audit plan. We're constituting the audit committee, which will be meeting quarterly, thinking that committee will likely meet as early as the end of March. Aday's been very busy. You're also going to hear from audit about extending our Baker Tilly contract later in the meeting. And then let me just finally say that the registration is open for the BERS annual conference. Now there are 2 conferences that we recommend trustees attend, and BERS is one of them. National Council of Employee Pension Systems. They provide very robust education and training opportunities at this conference. Registration is open. The conference is from May 9th through 10th, and there are educational 2 days before the 9th and 10th event. Recommend this highly.
Where is this, Sandy?
This is going to be in Las Vegas this year. We will pay expenses. I distributed an email just today to all trustees to give you more information. If you want to understand the agenda and the training program options, they are linkable through that. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. We would, if everyone could go to this, it would be a great thing. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Sandy. The next item on this evening's agenda are calendar items 2 through 17, the ordinary business of BERS. Is there a motion to consider calendar items 2 through 17? Thank you, Donald. Second. Thank you, Shannon. We will now vote on these items. Please raise your hand if you vote to approve calendar items 2 through 17. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The vote carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 18, amendment to the authority and procedure for the executive committee. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, John. Second. Thank you, Gary. Sandy, can you tell us about this resolution, please?
So everyone understands that we've established these committees to help us administer the governance of our organization. We have had at times difficulty organizing these meetings. One of the answers that we have come up with is, in addition to regulating the size of the committees, asking for alternates. Understanding that 3 of our trustees have automatic alternates. Donald has an alternate, John has an alternate, Lindsay has an alternate. It makes it a lot easier to organize meetings. We've actually had pre-conversations with some of you about this, and this is going to just help us manage the governance challenges of our organization, and encourage you that even if you haven't been asked to be an alternate and you would like to volunteer, please, volunteer.
Okay.
Is that
the
sufficient?
amendment, so the
Yeah.
amendment to the authority of the committee is simply to specify that it has alternate members in addition to regular members. That's the only change.
Thank
Do
you.
you want the volunteers now?
In a moment, that's the next resolution.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Sandy and Alice. Let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is calendar item 19, election of the members of the executive committee of BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, Deb. Second. Thank you, Gary. And now that we have amended the executive committee charter, we need to reconstitute the committee to include alternates. The executive committee should have between 5 and 7 members. Each member should have an alternate. At the January meeting, there were 6 volunteers: Natalie, John, Donald, Isaac, Michael, and myself. John, Donald, and I already have alternates. As Sandy said, we need volunteers to be alternates for Natalie, Isaac, and Michael. Can I have a volunteer to be Natalie's alternate, please? Thank you, Deb. Can I have a volunteer to be Isaac's alternate, please? Thank you, Shannon. Can I have a volunteer to be Michael's alternate, please? Thank you, Gary. Well done.
Why was that so easy?
Because Alice says
We stressed over this, we stressed over this for a couple of hours.
As Lindsay's reading tonight.
All right. Nah. All right. Alice did a good job. Thank you. Are there any questions about that? Everybody's clear on their volunteer responsibilities. Okay. Let's vote. All in favor of Gary, Deb, and Shannon serving as alternates for Natalie, Isaac, and Michael. Please raise their hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is calendar item 20, amendment to the audit committee charter for BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, John. Second. Thank you, Shannon. This amendment is like the amendment of the executive committee charter. We are adding a provision to provide for an alternate for each member of the committee. Are there any questions? I think this is basically the same thing. Okay. Let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 21, election of the members of the audit committee. Can I have a motion to consider? Thank you, Deb. Second. Thank you, Donald. Last month we elected 4 members of the audit committee, Janelle, John, Shannon, and myself. We will need volunteers to be alternates for Janelle and Shannon. Can I have a volunteer to be the alternate for Janelle, please? Thank you, Natalie. Can I have a volunteer to be the alternate for Shannon, please? Thank you, Gary.
Isaac.
Oh.
It's a competition. Rock, paper,
There's one more
scissors.
committee coming up.
All right, who landed on Gary? Yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, let's vote. All in favor of Natalie and Gary serving as alternates for Janelle and Shannon, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Vote carries. Thank you. Thank you for all the volunteering. The next item on the agenda is calendar item 22, amendment to the authority and procedure of the Disability Committee of BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, John. Second. Thank you, Deb. This resolution is to amend the committee charter to provide for each committee member to have an alternate. Are there any questions from the board? Same thing as we've been doing. Let's vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. The next item on the calendar is calendar item 23, election of members of the Disability Committee of BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, Gary. Thank you, John. Last month, Janelle, Gary, Donald, John, and myself were appointed to the Disability Committee. We would like to reconstitute the members of the committee, including alternates, as Peter has indicated he would like to join the Disability Committee, but Peter is not here. Gary has agreed to drop off the committee and serve as Peter's alternate. How are we playing this, Alex?
We can keep, since Peter isn't present, we can leave him off for now. We can keep Gary on the committee and just ask for additional volunteers to the extent that we can. And we can propose Peter as a volunteer as an alternate since he asked for.
So I should be asking for an alternate for Janelle and for Peter?
Just
Janelle and Gary.
Janelle and Gary, yes.
We'll give Peter a...
Okay. So we need to appoint alternates for Janelle and Gary. Can I have a volunteer to be the alternate for Janelle, please? Looking at you, Isaac. Thank you. Can I have a volunteer to be the alternate for Gary, please?
Can I propose Peter?
Peter?
Yes,
Okay.
you can, yes.
Okay.
He is not here, but he did email us
Oh,
indicating that he
yeah,
was
so
interested, so let's.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's vote. All in favor of Isaac and Peter serving as alternates for Janelle and Gary, please. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. Thank you all. The next agenda item is calendar item 24, authorization to extend an agreement with Baker Tilly Virchow Kraus LLP. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, Natalie. Second. Thank you, John. This is an extension of the Baker Tilly agreement for time only. No additional funds are being requested at this time. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, let's vote. All in
Wait,
favor?
I'm sorry, I do have a question. What is it, read it again?
This is a request to extend an agreement with Baker Tilly only for the time, not for funding. So it would extend the contract for a time period and with no additional funds being added.
That sounds great. Can we just hear why?
Yes?
A day?
Yes. So being that this is the first time that BERS has really started up its own function, we did we have multiple levels of what contributed to the delay. The response time with some concurrence from process owners was significantly longer than expected at times. And overall, I think we may have underestimated how long the process was going to take. And so at this time, we're just asking, we still have hours and money in the current contract to execute, and so we're just asking for time to execute. Thank you.
Okay, everyone good? Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. The next item on the agenda is calendar item 25, authorization to enter into an agreement with Gary Tunnicliffe and Jack Ziegler, LLC. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you. John, second. Thank you, Gary. Sandy, can you tell us about this resolution, please?
Yes, so this is a resolution that will give us an option to reach out to Gary and Jack if we have any questions or concerns. Remember that we released them from services as of January 30th. They surrendered all their documentation. They prepared a quite comprehensive transition plan and helped execute that transition plan. This is basically a resource capability that we may or may not use just in case we need to reach them for some reason. The project management team does not expect to need it, but I view this as an option to protect us in case we do.
And is it based on a set rate, an hourly rate then? How would that work?
We estimated at about $205 an hour.
And that's how they see it as well? They
Yes.
just start the clock if you call them? And
Yes, quarter hour billing. Yep. And as I indicated, we don't believe we'll use it, but if we need to, we don't want to be facing the idea that we have a question and we need to go through this process, and it could take 30 to 60 days.
There's a maximum cap
Yeah, $20,000 over the next year and a half. And
at most.
if we spend that much, it would be a remarkable thing. I can't believe it will happen. Understand that the project is on schedule, it's on budget. You know, we're struggling with the staffing a little bit, but the staff is doing a great job maintaining the momentum. So, you know, this is just in case.
I guess then I have a clarifying question. If you don't anticipate needing it, if they gave you every document, and if they gave you more than what you needed, I'm wondering, when you say that you could have a question, are they leaving the country? Like, I don't understand. Help me understand.
I would say that wherever they are, if we do have a question, look, I'm a big believer in building options for everything.
Okay.
And this is an option that we may need. And if we need it, we'll probably need it in a 24 to 48 hour period. And it would be impossible to actually pursue this.
They
Right,
can't
so
really
this
legally
is-
do work for BERS without this kind of thing in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just
Yeah.
is like, it really makes sense to have as an insurance policy. If needed, there's a way to get a hold of the institutional knowledge.
And the 20, I'm assuming that's like just discretionary funds. Like, where do we find the 20K? Is it already built into your?
It's in the
$1.2
project
million
contract.
they left when they
Yeah.
designed,
I
so.
was gonna
Yeah,
say.
it's
still
in the capital
$1.2 million.
Net about $1 million.
But haven't we repurposed that?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, we won't need to. We'll assuming that our internal staff can manage the transition, which they are, that money won't be spent.
No, that's why you're coming back to us. That's where you're gonna get that.
Just to be sure. That's what
Gotcha.
building options, Shannon.
Gotcha.
Okay, everyone good?
Yep.
All right, let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 26, authorization to extend an agreement with Cordiatis LLC to provide advisory services to BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, John. Second. Thank you, Shannon. This is a 6-month extension to the Cordiatis agreement to provide project management service for the design and implementation of the investment book of record, IBOR. Are there any questions from the board? let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 27, consent to assignment of an agreement with Torrey Cove to provide advisory services to BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, Don. Second. Thank you, Deb. As you are aware, BERS released an RFP and contracted with Torrey Cove to be our private markets consultant. After BERS contracted with Torrey Cove, Axia LLC entered into an agreement to acquire Torrey Cove. The transaction is scheduled to close in the first half of the year. The board is requested to consent to the assignment of the Torrey Cove agreement. Are there any questions from the board?
The Torrey Cove is here if you have any questions.
I think it might be helpful, we talked about this a lot at our retreat, it would be helpful, I think, if we could give just like a quick recap for folks who did not have the opportunity to hear about the acquisition. Do you mind?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Michelle Davidson, Torrey Cove. And so at the beginning of the year, we agreed to combine with a firm called Axia LLC. So Torrey Cove is a specialist advisor. We focus on the private markets. Axia focuses on more illiquid alternatives. So together we cover the full spectrum of alternatives. We're both independent firms, employee-owned. We'll stay that way after the combination. Together we'll have more resources. So currently Torrey Cove is about 70 professionals. Together with Axia we'll have 240 professionals, including 150 research professionals. And we are based in San Diego and Boston area. Axia is headquartered in New York with offices in London, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Athens. So on a combined basis, we'll be more global as well. So we think it retains the things you like about us in terms of our deep domain expertise and our independence, lack of conflicts, but offers more resources. Happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
One other thing I'll just note is that Axia is already a consultant for 2 of the 5 New York City retirement systems. So we are working with the New York City retirement system today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay.
I have a question.
You look like you have a question.
So I remember when Torrey Cove was brought to us, one of the biggest sort of selling point pieces was that they pushed when at Elise were them being, I always mess it up now, what is it,
MWB.
Thank you, firm. So what does this mean with this acquisition?
Say that I do not believe. I think the current partners
I'm
would
sorry.
remain.
She can tell us, right?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So we're going from a firm with 13 employee owners. There'll be 13 partners at Axia. We'll still have a significant number of female and minority professionals, but it will not be MWBE owned. So it legally qualifies as MWBE anymore. But the employees will all still remain and be part of the management firm.
And so there's a point to these questions. So with regard to that, right? I presume Axia is the firm that got the more shares. Help me with the language here. Like Axia
Axia's
will own.
acquiring Torrey Cove.
Oh, thank you. So when you acquire something, you get to shift its organizational and institutional values and core values and culture. And so considering that, I'd like to know when we voted for, well, I'm gonna speak for Shannon. When I voted to support the acquisition of, or the fund manager selection of Torrey Cove, it was because Torrey Cove's values were in line and were headed in the same direction that we as a board were headed in that same direction. So what I'm really, like the question, this part is really like, are those things still gonna be true?
Yes, and that's one thing that we really liked about Axia is they had very similar values to us, and we don't see that too much in the marketplace. 5 of us will be partners at the firm out of a total of 13, so we'll have a lot of say. Our current president and CEO, David Fan, will be a vice chairman of the combined organization. So we're going to have a lot of influence, and importantly, we think we align very well in terms of value and culture.
And they've acquired us because they like how we do business. They like the fact that we are a diverse foreign firm. It's important to us. They told us that. There would be no layoffs. I mean, we're looking to hire more people. It's a very good fit. You know, they're hedge funds, we're private equity. We're going to put it together. And it's really great alternatives consultant phase, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Shannon, to your point, when this whole happened, I had a phone call with Dave Fan, CEO of Tory Cove, the same question you have.
Yeah.
And he assured me that that would not change. He was staying on a 3-year minimum in the contract. So
Okay.
we're comfortable.
Because he's the one who came and presented to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
everyone good? Any other questions? Thank you, Tory Cove. Okay, all in favor? Let's vote, all in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? The vote carries, thank you. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 28, authorization to the controller to invest, sell, and exchange the funds of the system. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, John. Second? Thank you, Gary. This is the quarterly authorization to the controller. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is calendar item 29, selection of a private markets consultant for BERS. Can I have a motion to consider, please? Thank you, Natalie. Second? Thank you, Gary. The controller recommended that BERS select a private markets consultant from a short list presented to each of the retirement systems. However, BERS has already retained Tory Cove to serve as BERS private markets consultant. Therefore, BERS management is recommending that the controller's recommendation be rejected. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, so we are going to be voting to reject the recommendations from the controller. All in favor of the vote to reject? Excellent. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. The next item on our agenda are investment items that should be in executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session, please? Thank you, Deb. Second, thank you, Don. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The vote carries. Okay, Alex, can you report out the board's actions in executive session, please?
Certainly, the board voted to approve the following items. Calendar item 30, designation of a private equity co-investment partner and authorization to the controller of the City of New York to commit a portion of the private equity portfolio. Calendar item 31, authorization to the controller of the City of New York to terminate investment managers. Calendar item 32, authorization to the controller of the City of New York to hire an investment-grade credit corporate fixed income investment manager and commit funds on behalf of the Board of Education Retirement System. Calendar item 33, authorization to the controller of the City of New York to add investment managers and strategies to a pool for potential future use. And calendar item 34, authorization to the controller of the City of New York to change the IG Credit IG Corporate Programs benchmark from the FTSE Customized IG Credit Index to the Bloomberg Barclays US Corporate IG Index.
Thank you, Alex. The final item on our agenda is calendar item 35, presentation by the actuary. Can I have a motion to discuss, please? Thank you, Deb. Second. Thank you, Natalie. Sherry.
So there are 2 items on my report. One is the fiscal note update. So believe it or not, their fiscal note season is underway. The legislative session moved up this year to accommodate the primaries. Everything has been moved up. So we did issue our first fiscal note in January. This has to do with changing the basket clause for the foreign investments. So the foreign equity cap right now is at 10%. The proposed bill is to move it to 20%. They're actually, just because in returns and a diversified portfolio, there is no projected change in the contributions because of this legislative bill. And then the other item I had was in regards to the actual valuation method of the TDA assets. For the TDA fixed funds, those that pot of money is invested with the PPP main fund on a cumulative basis. So because the fixed fund has the 7%/8.25% guarantee, depending on what premium you're in, there's different ways to handle this transfer of the amount that is over the actual value assumed rate of 7%. So you can handle it either as a fixed benefit payment where everything would be recognized immediately, or you can assume that the return of the TDA fund earns the actual return and it gets to keep the excess over the 7%. So there's different ways of accounting for it. So there is a change in methodology so that it is recognized through a investment gain loss rather than a benefit payment. What that translates to is a reduction in the employer contribution of about $11 million, and that would be this fiscal year for it. some of the reasons for this change, they are, one of the actual standards of practice do say that, when you meet your assumption of whatever your assumptions are, if you hit your assumptions, there should be no gain loss that comes from it. So this would align with that practice and conform to the actual standards of practice.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Any questions?
Yeah, but it's not terribly important. I understand the standard of practice. I guess I'm just wondering, so for example, I'm TRS. We are not 7, we're 8 point whatever, right?
8.25.
So whatever you're saying doesn't apply to us, or it does apply to us, and you are talking about the difference between that 7 and, so that 1.25?
There are members and BERS that have the 8.25%. And that's what
Okay.
that's what I was
Okay.
referring to. Because the actual assumed, right, the actual assumed rate is 7%. But you're giving a fixed payment of 8.25%. So there's this loss, or there's this difference, I should say, between the 7% and 8.25%. So it's how do you account for it? And there's no right or wrong method of doing it, and
You
in
just
fact,
explained to us why you did it, because it's in
Yeah.
line with the best practice.
right.
So what happens to people in the system who are getting paid anything?
It doesn't affect the benefits, it just affects how do you account for the differential between the 7% and 8.25. Like how do you fund for it, how do you put it on the books?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Sherry. Okay, that concludes the agenda for this meeting. The next regular meeting of the BERS Board of Trustees will be held on Wednesday, March 18th, early in the month, in March, at the High School for Fashion Industries. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Gary. Second. Thank you, Shannon. Any opposed, or all in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you, we are adjourned.